What a 48 hours it has been. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for what is going to be another jam-packed daily market update with yours truly. If you are new around here, we drop one of these every single day around 1 p.m. UK time to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space, but also the broader markets. And that is exactly what we intend to do in this daily market update. It has been a jam-packed 24 hours, and we're going to try and cover it all for you guys in this video. We're going to kick things off with the news that broke late last night, and that was that the SEC versus Ripple case has officially come to an end with the joint filings for dismissals of the appeals by both Ripple Labs and, of course, the SEC. So we're going to start things off there. Interestingly, the probabilities of an XRP ETF chances have dropped on the back end of this or going into this. I think, and I very much agree with Smoke on some of the research that he's done, that BlackRock are, now this case has been, I think it's going to be a bombshell moment. Now this case has been dropped, we'll be actually filing for an XRP ETF. You do get broader altcoin ETFs, and I think we're going to get that on the back end of this month. Going into September, you know, some of the ETP providers, we speak to some of the leading ETP providers, exchange-traded product providers in the world when it comes to crypto. And they're looking at that sort of September mark. And also we know that they're going to have to give further clarity on Grayscale Digital Large Cap Fund and Bitwise's top 10 index fund that was approved and then stayed. And there's altcoins within that. And we know there's a lot of ETFs pending. It's another major catalyst that's going to see this industry do well. So we will look at all that. Then there was a fact sheet released yesterday in regards to 401ks. And the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has essentially democratized access to alternative assets for 401ks, i.e. crypto. There is, depending on what stats you go by, around about $8 trillion in 401ks, and we'll also link that to the around about $7.5 trillion in money market funds that should be coming back into the markets. Not all of it, of course, but at least a few trillion. On the back end of further rate reductions. You know, we had a rate reduction yesterday by the BOE. I think we're going to need more than a 25 basis point rate reduction to save us here in the UK. You guys can see that I am not in my usual office. I'm down south in the UK. And honestly, yesterday walking around, and I won't mention the town, you can only but say this place needs God. Anyway. We won't go, and I can see why there's so many social problems based on how life is for a lot of the people that live in these certain areas. And I come from these areas, so, you know, been through the motions myself. There was also an executive order that Trump had spoke about in regards to guaranteeing fair banking for all Americans. It specifically kind of targets crypto and debanking. And then I'm going to talk to you about the broader economy, because when we had the kind of tariff spill after Liberation Day, everybody was, oh no, that's it. All in crypto, you're wrong. Markets are going to plummet into oblivion. The recession, blah, 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 blah. And we said, no, the markets are wrong. And people are wrong on the ramifications of recessions. And actually, it's been a heavy few weeks of earnings. About 82% of all the S&P companies beat quarterly earning estimates. A lot of them significantly. Despite President Trump's tariffs. And I want to talk to you guys about the S&P, because we need to be in a generally bullish risk environment. I say need to be. Maybe Bitcoin does have some risk-off properties like BlackRock have put forward. But we do need to be in a generally sort of risk-friendly environment, which I absolutely think we're in, and the S&P is a barometer of that for the crypto currency markets to excel like they have been doing. So let's get into it all. Last night, this was the individual that broke the story to me, James Phelan. And he says, breaking, the parties have filed a joint dismissal of the appeals, and you can see you've got the United States and the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. You've got Ripple Labs, mentions Brad and Chris, and then it talks about how the Securities and Exchange Commission and Ripple Labs have essentially both gone for a jointly stipulate to the dismissal of the Commission's appeal and Ripple's cross appeal, with each party to bear its own costs and fees. So they have essentially concluded this. I'm going to find you Stuart, the chief legal officer over at, not Coinbase, Ripple's tweet on the back end of this, just so people know that this is over. There's been many kind of false flags, if you will. Following the Commission's vote today, the SEC and Ripple finally filed directly with the Second Circuit to dismiss their appeal. The end, and now back to business. And this has huge ramifications, not just for Ripple as a company, obviously XRP as an asset. We've been speaking a lot about what the usage and utility of XRP as a bridge asset, potentially a world reserve bridge asset, that is going to enable a far more efficient cross-border financial system, could have on its price. And it could truly be, people are underestimating massively where XRP could go if it's successful. And there's a lot of clues that would perhaps lead one to believe it's going to be successful, certainly based on some of the partnerships that they've got and the customers that Ripple have as a company. And already we're seeing the use of kind of Xcurrent or ODL. Very interesting. And if somebody's calling XRP a scam still, it's like there's a lot of prominent people call like XLM, which is actually outperforming XRP on this news. Join the Patreon, find out what we're looking at in regards to all that. If people are still calling XRP a scam at this point, they really don't understand it. That's my honest opinion. No offense to anybody out there that or perhaps if you're wrong if you're still calling XRP and some of these other cryptos. They're fundamentally going to change the world of scam. This was interesting. Trade reporting how Polymarket's odds of XRP approval went down to 62% after the votes were disclosed, showing Crenshaw voting no. But A, she's going to vote no on everything, and B, it's meaningless. She's outnumbered. We haven't changed our odds. Still think 95% probability. I think you are going to get BlackRock entering the XRP ETF arena, in my opinion. Also, we know, looks like Crenshaw theory on the stay orders stopped Grayscale's digital large cap fund and Bitwise's BITW from converting into ETFs. Wasn't a crazy theory after all. And we're starting to get all that. It's a shame. You're always going to get one individual. Bureaucracy is exactly that. It can be hard to get things round. But this is huge news. Has real broad ramifications for everything. We looked at XRP's price on the back end of this. Like I say, interesting to me that XLM is actually outperforming it, even though the news wasn't related to it. And I think it's because they're both trying to do similar things. And now there's potentially the green light for them to do that. Again, guys, become a Patreon. You don't need to follow the videos on here. But if you want to take your journey a step further, find out what we're buying and how we're positioned and why, to more of a degree, become a Patreon. If it's not for you, cancel your membership after a month and leave with the information that you get given. Fact sheet. President Donald Trump democratizes access to alternative assets for 401k investors, expanding investment choices to 401k plans. Today, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order to allow 401k investors to access alternative assets for better returns and diversification. Now, this was interesting. It essentially talks about crypto assets, building wealth, and securing retirement for all Americans. It's extremely interesting through tax cuts and deregulations. We're still yet to get any news on tax cuts, but essentially this is all about allowing Americans to add crypto to their 401ks. And I believe you've got, is it $8 trillion in 401ks? And that's quite a large pool of liquidity that some may decide to enter the cryptocurrency space. You know, if you see this technology is truly impactful, you might want to bet on it in the future. Well, this perhaps could be a great way to do it. I'm excited about the ETN news in the United Kingdom. We'll also probably follow suit with you being able to put cryptos into your retirement. We had ETN news by the FCA that they are going to allow for ETNs. They're exchange-traded notes. They work like ETPs, slightly different from the US's ETF system. Do go and give Duncan Moyer a follow. He's president of 21 Shares, good friend of the channel, great guy. You know, if you want a president of the company, he's the man for the job. And we've spoken about a lot of this, and now they're going to allow us to essentially buy stock equivalent of cryptos, and that may allow us to put them into our stocks and shares ISA, of which we have £20,000 allowance, which means that anything you make on that 20 grand, and that's yearly allowance, you don't pay any tax on. So we essentially have a way here in the UK to, maybe, not yet, none of this has come to fruition, but might do, and I'll do lots of videos on it, to be able to buy crypto via ETNs and not pay any tax on it in regards to the profits that we make. That's exciting, and I think will appeal because of the returns, like why Trump's allowing for the 401ks to a lot of investors and bring UK capital in, US capital we're seeing progress. There is also something that we've not spoken about in a while, and that's money market funds. And money market funds are debt-based instruments, and there's a high yield on them right now with interest rates. There's $7.3 trillion in here, and I think a good few trillions of these are going to find their way back into markets, certainly as you see those interest rates drop. I wonder when Warren Buffett has to pivot. That's certainly something that's going to be interesting. But this is a huge unlock. Like I say, jam-packed 24 hours, right? David Sachs also commenting here, President Trump signed 2 important executive orders relevant to the crypto communities today, guaranteeing fair banking for all Americans. This was the order. Fact sheet, President Donald Trump guarantees fair banking for all Americans. Basically about stopping them from getting penalized in regards to religious beliefs, cryptocurrency holdings, and things of the such. So it guarantees fair banking for all Americans, preventing the denial of banking services based on political beliefs, religious beliefs, or lawful business practices. This means unfair censorship campaigns like the debanking of the conservatives or Operation Choke Point 2.0, which is all about crypto, can never happen again. Now, I'm under no illusion, Rupert, don't even go there in regards to the right or wrong religious beliefs to have for this to apply or not apply to you. Anyway, democratizing access to alternative assets for 401k investors will allow more than 90 million American workers whose retirement accounts are currently limited to access the same range of alternative assets, including digital assets, that are available to government workers for better returns of diversification. Thank you, President Trump, for guaranteeing greater fairness and freedom in our financial system. If you're not bullish on crypto, I do not know what to say at this point, because I don't think there's anything I can say to persuade you. It's just an unbelievable time to be in the cryptocurrency space. For me, that's been covering this space for years and years and years, and a partaker in it, a speculator on it. It's just nice to be in this position finally, and truly, I think certainly we've got a good time ahead of us broadly for assets. I think crypto plays into that in regards to potential economic boom that comes on the back end of modernizing capital and allowing that capital to go to work in a more efficient manner and a more volumesome manner, because it no longer needs to be locked up. Talk about Nostro Vostro accounts. It's not just that. It's also actually allowing assets to be used in a kind of liquid form. Maybe we should do all this in a different video. But the S&P, everybody was showing up, giving us crap, even though we'd predicted this entire run, just like we predicted for Bitcoin. And we said the markets are wrong. Well, this economist said this economist said that. I don't care what economists say, because they are the worst traders and investors that there are, because their theoretical models will talk to them in a classroom. They are frequently wrong, and we said, okay, is the reality that trade ceases and then there is real repercussions, or is it that it continues but people have to bear the burdens of tariffs, and of course there's going to be negative effects on that? Well, trade will continue, and we said the markets have got this wrong. The uncertainty that was lower than 2020, 2008, 2000s is unwarranted. Yes, there is a lot of uncertainty in markets. I think that's fair, and I think if you listen to what Andrew Bailey, who I'm not the biggest fan of, said yesterday, he admits that. He goes, we're uncertain about the path ahead. The general trend is interest rates are coming down, but the uncertainty that's reflected in the markets is correct. There is a lot of uncertainty, but I think there's a lot more reason to be hopeful than not. And since this tariff drama, the markets have clearly gotten it wrong, because markets have gone on higher. And actually we see that continuously. Certainly if we take a look at 82% of S&P companies that would have had earnings over the last couple of weeks. So let's dive into this.
Here's a look at earnings expectations. What a chart this is. It's been a very strong quarter despite tariff uncertainty, with 82% of S&P 500 companies beating estimates so far. That's the highest rate since 2021.
So just a really short clip, but basically 82% of all S&P companies beat quarterly earnings, despite these tariffs and things like that. Guys, I think you've got a great time ahead of you. If I thought anything different, you would all know about it. Ultimately, because it's a hungry shepherd, or a bad shepherd goes hungry. A good shepherd looks after his flock, And, you know, really that's what we're trying to do here and trying to highlight the cryptocurrency space for the opportunity that I believe it truly is. Guys, have a fantastic Friday. We'll be back tomorrow with another daily market update. Evening video coming out today, a very interesting one. If you want to take your step further, do become a Patreon. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.